Hello, everybody, and welcome to the opening day of AFMX. My name is James Glover. I am thrilled that you have chosen to join us today. I'm here with a wonderful filmmaker based out of India. Her name is Suruchi Sharma. She has a beautiful film of love and artistry, and I am so absolutely thrilled to have you here. Suruchi, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, James. Lovely
I,
being here.
I am so curious about how this film came about, and I have 1,000 questions for you. But I wonder if you can just sort of give me a little bit of a broad overview of the film and of your process to make it.
Okay, so that will take that's encompassing a lot of things, but I'll just start from saying that I am from Rajasthan, India, and based out of Jaipur, which is its capital. And Rajasthan is like a wonderful, a land which offers wonderful combination of folk arts and performing arts and music. And thankfully, I've had some exposure to it, ever since I was growing up. And so the interest was always there. Um, and, long story short, I happened to get in touch with people who were working in the realm of promoting folk arts because of my work in academics. And one fine day, somebody sort of asked me to be on board for a film which they wanted to be filmed. And that was actually before Of Love and Artistry happened. I shot another film for them, a documentary, independent documentary, while I was still a student actually. And a couple of years after, there was this opportunity to make this film for John Singh ji, who was the founder of this foundation called Jaipur Virasat Foundation, which was promoting folk artists across Rajasthan. Initially the idea came from his sister, and basically the sister, Mrs. Jane Himmat Singh, who was the producer of the film, wanted to just sort of give a pleasant surprise to her brother that you've done such a wonderful work in Rajasthan, and why don't you just hear what the folk artists have to say for you? So, what initially the idea was to just have like a 15-minute video of different folk artists giving like a testimonial to the camera and saying, thanking John Singh ji. But when I came on board, I saw that there was a lot of potential in the whole idea of we'll be traveling across Rajasthan, meeting these artists. There are so many stories and so much of music there that you can't just sort of put it together in a 15 or 10-minute video, and it's just not doing justice to all the connections that they've had and everything. So I sort of proposed a longer film, and I definitely saw it a mix of both. As you see in the film, finally, that it's a mix of stories of artists and their personal experience, plus their ode to their thankful ode to John Singh ji. So that's how eventually it ended. Unfortunately, during even before we started making the film, John Singh ji passed away. So he was not no more with us when we started making the film. And so the film took a more larger meaning for all of us who were involved, plus the artists, because now they were sort of going back to the memories of this person who sort of gave them a larger platform and encouraged them throughout their journeys. So that's how the film overall happened.
So I was going to ask this question just a little bit later, but because you brought it up, it really feels like John Da or John Sinji
Yeah.
really is the sort of silent hero of the film. And as you watch it, his character starts to really develop. Uh, it's incredible to me that the reverence that the artists that you interviewed had for him, he really reached in and touched their lives in a major way, didn't he?
Absolutely. So when you say John Da, it's actually a name that you give to a person like an elder brother. Da means an elder brother. So
Oh,
people, or Dadaji, like a grandfather. So they, like in different parts of India, it will have different meanings, but definitely it's a word, a title of reverence you give to somebody you love and respect. So all the artists, they never call, so his name was John Singh, and I'm using G because in India, when we are talking out of respect, we add G after every name. So, but nobody called him John Singh or John Singh Ji. Everybody referred to him as John Da, because they were, as even one of them mentions in the film, that he felt like he was part of their family, or it was a family member who's come visiting, and especially because when you see in India, there's a lot of difference between, or anywhere else, you would realize that there's a lot of difference in the country life and the life people live in the cities. And when a city person comes to village and accepts the culture there is, like like his own, then
Mhm.
people definitely feel touched. That's what something sort of that means the most to them, that nobody's othering them when they are in their own environment, when they're coming to their home. When a city person's going to a village, one should not be like, oh, such and such surroundings, and I'm not suited to this or whatever, I'm not comfortable or whatever. If person sort of accepts those surroundings well, they are more more than happy with that. The villagers are more than happy with that. So folk artists that are talking in the film always sort of were thankful for the acceptability that John Singh Ji gave. Secondly, of course, unlike any other platform, he provided them an exposure across the world, and more than in more than more it was not really like an not in the matter of being an enterprise, but more out of humane concern for the folk artists, is what I'm trying to say. That it's not because I'm running this foundation, and it's not very it was not it was very organic in its in its functioning. And that's what people love, the connection that you make. And that is also being reflected in the film throughout, as you see that everything that is being spoken is coming from the heart. We've never asked somebody to give that sort of make up their words or whatever. It's just
Right.
coming from the heart. It's coming, it's true. Whatever's coming is very true.
That was interesting to me about the film is that at no point did anyone who spoke to the camera come off as disingenuous or come off as playing to the camera or something like that. It really honestly felt like a little slice of life into this person's practice of their artistry. And it was near the end of the film. I mean, the man said, like, one of the gentlemen said it was because of John that it gave me this opportunity to live this sort of life. And the idea that someone so generously would create a foundation and finance the lives of these artists in the hope of preservation of this art, that's a pretty profound way to live your life. I think it gave me
Absolutely.
chills when they started talking about John, because I had never taken it mentally to that degree of a person being
Mhm.
so genuine when you spend a minute
Yes.
with someone. It's pretty incredible. I want to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to just throw out my take, and I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Sure,
The
sure.
There was a line in the film that one of the gentlemen gave that to me rang true as the thesis for the film. Outside of John's, obviously John's influence on all these people, but he said, "Food, wealth, love, even knowledge. These pleasures fall short compared with the pleasures of music." And that to
Yeah.
me rang as the foundation for the entire film.
Absolutely. So I'll just touch upon two things. When you said that everything was organic or never, sort of felt made up, I think that was also coming from a place that, from the understanding of folk arts in general. When you come to Rajasthan and you witness these performances, it's okay if something goes wrong, and it's okay if they are start having a chat between in the middle of a performance. It's not very, it's not very tight and crisp, and this is how it is to be. It is not very sophisticated, if I have to say. That is one essence that I kept on through the film as well. So if you see, you pick on these moments which are very candid and very picked up from everyday life, because that's what folk arts are. It's a reflection on of the life, everyday life, and they're not very perfect moments, but they are how it is. That was
Mm-hmm.
one thing. And the second thing you mentioned about music being the essence. So I think throughout the film, every person has had that sort of experience about feeling life, I think in general, when one gentleman, another one says that I'm almost shameless because I'm an artist, right?
Hmm.
So both these people are saying that as artists, we are sort of, in some other, experiencing some other flavors of life, which are sort of, we don't take so much pleasure in food as much as we take pleasure in dancing, in front of a crowd, or just singing our favorite music. So I think it's true for all artists across the world, and people who are very, these humble people who are coming from, remote places in Rajasthan, are also realizing this through their music, through their art. I think it's a wonderful gift that, of art in general, that, it can be experienced anywhere by everyone, and how universal it is.
It's amazing how that sort of human experience is so transcendent between cultures that music seems to be this like very, very strong thread that pulls a lot of people and cultures together and roots tradition. With the music that was featured in the film, how difficult was it to sort of, I'm sure you guys had a plethora to choose from. Talk to me about trying to make music selections for the film itself.
Absolutely, you're very correct in that, because, for example, there, you see in the credits, there are a lot of Manganiyas and Langas who are mentioned in the credits. So that this is a community which are professional singers from Rajasthan. So if you and it's a community altogether. So if you go to a particular village where all these Manganiyas and Langas are living, you go house after house, and everybody is a performer, and a brilliant performer at that. So everybody, and how do they welcome you? How do they, their hospitality is that they sing for you, right? That's their best gift to you. So there was a day when we almost like filmed and recorded more than 25 songs in a day, and
Wow.
everything was just spectacular. So of course we archived a lot of wonderful music, and stories. But as you said that, we definitely had a constraint of the 45-minute film, because this is what we had in mind. Let's keep it at that. And so my editor Ruth, she and myself, she did a great job at the film of sort of putting it all together. But we sort of went through everything, made notes, and did a sort of paper edit, and only relating to, if you see, every song that is played is in a way complementing what has been said before, or what is coming after. So only after we sort of selected the capsules that we wanted to put in the film in terms of conversations, then did we pick out the right songs that would complement them. And also, of course, one would have their bias when when we've had so much of music, we've experienced it ourselves. But I would definitely have my bias thrown in sometimes, that, oh, I love this song, and I would just want it to be there nevertheless. So
I think
yeah.
that's one of the pleasures of being a filmmaker, is being able to put your favorite song in there. I think that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
I'll also add that, as I mentioned, Langas and Manganiyas, if you go in, across the world, I think people are a little more familiar to these people, the Manganiya community, because of their international presence across various music festivals. But in this film, the great part is that you also see a lot of other performances that are even not heard of or not witnessed by Indians themselves. Even in Rajasthan, we would not, everybody would be aware of what the Pabuji ka Phad is, the scroll in the dark, that sort of a thing, that's called
Mhm.
Pabuji ka Phad. Nobody knows of that. Or the drum beaters who sing the Gogaji bhajans. Not everybody. They are very niche areas and niche performance arts. So one more thing that was in our mind was to balance everything together and not overwhelm our content with langas and manganiyas, but also give equal presence to all the art forms that we've witnessed. So yeah, that was another consideration.
As you were going through sort of some of these different villages, or these different groups that were singing some of those more niche music, I mean, and this is more of like a sociological geography question, is that a result of it being an enormous state in India that is not very densely populated? Is there not a lot of although they obviously share a lot of same traditions and similar music styles, is it not, is it not a lot of shared traditional songs that they have?
Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question. Actually, in India, every like there's a saying in every with every mile the language changes. The dialect changes. But once one experiences it, one can also say the music changes with every community, with every geography. As the geography changes, the music changes. The rituals change, and one has to understand that these traditions are coming from, there are two main separations, if we want to make classifications, if we want to make. One is, as I said, communities which are professionally earning by their music, but there is
Mhm.
the other end where communities are just performing for their ritual sake,
Mhm.
for their traditional sake, for their reverence to their folk deities, or things like that. So it's not really a commercial means, but because on a particular day, or at the particular ceremony, they have to do it as part of their ritual, they sing.
Mhm.
These are these two different classifications. So, and it changes with every geographical so India, I think what I have experienced is just one little part of Rajasthan, I would say. I'm sure there's more to explore within Rajasthan, but if you go across India, it's a wonderful culmination of different arts. So many of them are in fact endangered at the moment. Some we are not aware of, Hana. So it's so amazing. Like, I think we're standing in this amazing land. I'm so fortunate to have witnessed so much. And there's so much more to explore. So definitely there, and there are no similarities. There would be some universal similarities, if I may say, but they are very distinct from each other as well. So one can classify each art form based on their rituals, their beliefs, the god they are singing to, everything. It's an ethnographic research one can take up,
Yeah.
in this subject, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I want to touch, I want to sort of build on that question just a little bit, or on your answer a little bit. About halfway through the film, a gentleman says it takes generations to create new traditions. And I thought that was very interesting because I wanted to discuss a little bit the role of women and what sort of, because as we saw early in the film, the man had to forfeit his entire herd of goats in order to allow his daughter to sing. And that
Absolutely.
seems like that has either changed or has the potential to change as more women are being included in the conversation. During your travels to record this, what did you see in the role that women are playing, are starting to play, or could play within a generation?
Right. So again, I would say that even though, as I sort of, there is this beautiful, glorious tradition that we are witnessing here, I'd like to, point out, and it's a well-known fact, in fact, that it's also very, very patriarchal in its, essence. So definitely, at every point, one would see that sort of bias against women. If you see in the film, I could not, in fact, feature a lot of women singers because they were, very few that I encountered throughout my journey. So sometimes the traditions themselves inhibit female singers to come out. Sometimes they get, more sort of stricter, rules are made with time, like it happened with Sumitra, the lady that you mentioned, that
Mm-hmm.
at one point in time, their community would actually perform and the women would go out and, perform. But with time, it got more sort of, sort of strict, and there were more rules that were put out. So but at the same time, some women would not sing for me for the camera, but they would sing in welcoming us in their homes, right? So definitely women sing a lot, and there is a separate classification that these women can sing for, professional, like the lady you see who's performing the Bhopa and Gopi, the Santra Devi, if I may correct, say the lady who's singing in front of the scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's part of a community where the women are allowed to sing, but some communities would say no, we can't allow us women to sing professionally. But they would definitely have the women sing as part of rituals which are like within enclosed doors. They would not let them out in front of the camera or in front of a public. but they can sing within their enclosed doors. A couple of women will come together and sing their own songs for a ritual or a ceremony. So that definitely continues in every caste and community. But definitely there is a lot of room for bringing out women and their narratives and their music. Sumitra is just one instance, but there are many more such stories which where talents have been curved, and one definitely needs to promote these women and they and their talent, and make them more independent in this pursuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, of the women that you were able to feature, it really, it raised a lot of questions, at least for me, a Western viewer, to watch that aspect of the film be included, but not to the degree that obviously the male singers or the male artists were included. And I feel like that said almost as much as it wasn't able to say as I
Yeah.
watched the film, you know.
Hmm.
And so I am curious about how you, I almost don't want to say want Western viewers to interpret the film, but I guess what is the takeaway that you're hoping Westerners can garner from this film?
I would say, I never thought of it this way, as you mentioned. I never thought of this classification of Western or Eastern, because, as I mentioned, so many of these art forms are so unknown, even to the Indian audience, that even the urban Indian would feel, oh, what am I watching? Is it from India?
Hmm.
So actually, now with all the sort of globalization or whatever, the advancement, or there is no such classification as such. But at the same time, of course, there is some sort of different perspective that a Westerner would have. But I would say, generally speaking, for an audience, there's no set objective, but it's an experience that I wanted to give to my viewers. The experience that I personally had, and personally also the love that I have for these traditions. I think if that feeling is of love and of camaraderie with these folk artists, because one thing that was quite constant, before I was making this film, this the thought that was going on was that every time we see, especially in India, I've seen when we refer to a folk artist, it's with a label of a folk artist. Then you cease to see the person behind the label, and you just start seeing a person like a folk artist dressed in colorful costumes and singing something or just performing something, and you don't see the person beyond, or the humane side of that story, or the musician. I think this film was trying particularly to come to sort of put out the person behind those labels, and who are these people, what kind of lives are they living, what thoughts do they have, what are their stories. So that was my key objective, to sort of uncover the persons, people behind these labels of folk artists. When you would say, oh, he's a langa, he's a manganyar, she's a kamar, you have these community labels as well, but
Hmm.
what are their particular stories was one key objective. And of course, having a sort of empathy, develop a certain empathy for these people, because I don't know how life would be after 20 years, 10 years. In fact, after I made this film, 3 to 4 artists have passed away, so I'm really fortunate to have had captured a moment in their life, and we will always remember them through a film. So so that's one thing. So yeah, just these sort of experiences was one thing in mind.
Well, that's something that I really appreciated about the film, is that it wasn't this heavy hand holding through a story, but rather a window into an empathetic view into the life of these people, their traditions, and the things that make them happy. And what a
Yeah.
gift that they've been given to allow to be allowed to live a life of of the pursuit of their own happiness. I think that that's to circle back. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the foundation that John founded, and was able to pay a stipend to these artists and give them that opportunity. What so when I was looking through it, the Rajasthan Rural Arts Program.
Yes. James, I lost your voice. I'm sorry.
the opening day?
Yes, yes, now it's fine.
So with the rural arts program, how are these artists being found now that John has passed? How are these artists participating, and how is it growing?
Absolutely. So wonderful again that you asked. So I'll mention Faith Singh, who was John Singh's wife, and they both together sort of founded this foundation. If you might be aware, Anoki is another brand that they've been working
Mhm.
together on, which sort of empowered the block printing industry in Rajasthan. Yeah, so they have done a wonderful job, sort of putting together various interesting initiatives which the world knows, but they have never come up, sharing that, taking credit for it. For example, Jaipur Literature Festival is now very famous, but nobody knows that these were the people. This was the very team which sort of initiated the idea. So they have done incredible amount of work. Faith Singh still is sort of pursuing this interest, and rap was one such initiative by her where she wanted to people to familiarize themselves with, you know the culture of and their music, and it's a wonderfully put together museum for these musicians, and they feel a sense of pride when when people walk in and their snippets out there, they are identified for their art forms. There's a certain, even credibility that they get even in their communities after such initiatives are being made. So and JVF is still going on. Rap is still, sort of continuing to sort of welcome guests and familiarize themselves with the musicians and their art forms. And I'm sure after, in the COVID situation, people will find a way out to help these artists, because Faith is still, sort of, and her team, of course, is sort and sort of finding more solutions to sort of help the artists in this situation. At the same time, Riff is one festival which happens in Jodhpur Mehrangarh Fort, which hopefully will continue after we are done. We are sort of we find a way out of this situation that we are in.
I was actually going to ask you about the International Folk Festival, because that's coming up, right? That's coming up at the end of October.
Yes, I think I recently heard Divya Bhatia, the festival director, say that they're still sort of trying to make up their mind on how to go about it. I'm yet to check on the news of, the latest update whether the festival is coming up or not. But definitely, I'm sure, like all of us, we are trying to find solutions in the given situation. So with time, each one of us will also find answers to how to sort of continue our efforts in this particular sector as well.
As you've managed, as if you've just showed the film to people, and as more and more audiences are discovering it, how has the response been? What sort of what's the response to the music itself, and the kind of questions that you're getting about the film, in terms of it being just exposed for the first time to somebody?
Yeah, sure. So the responses, I think, first time when a person views is mostly overwhelmed with the music and the experience one has had, because there's so much to sort of, go through. Like you go from one community to another. So it's a collage of so many, musical experiences that it takes some time to sort of, register. Okay, this is so much that one has experienced. At the same time, people, of course, appreciate, and they sort of, are sort of, overwhelmed with the kind of journey one has had as a filmmaker, as a team, to sort of document. This is one thing that I keep getting. Oh, how lucky you were to sort of travel across and sort of meet these people. But one appreciates, the performances. People love Gopal Gilaji, the man who's in white, who like a mustache, and he features time and again, but such a handsome gentleman, speaking with such elan and such philosophy on art. Every artist has that, like you quoted Safi Khan Dadi, the quote that he provided, and such, such theatrics in his performance. So of course one is sort of, enamored by these performances, and one rejoices in those experiences after the film. There are certain questions about particular communities. Who are they? Where are they from? What kind of, music do they do? And there are a lot of particularities when one sort of delves into the world of folk performances. Once when one gets into the academic part of it, theoretical part of it, one realizes, oh, there are certain customs. You can't really, put everybody on a stage like that or whatever, like everybody. So I think one thing again that JVF sort of conquered was, go above those hindrances of local culture and sort of put them all together and make them understand the possibility that will open up after they accept the world as their audience. So yeah, and people have had wonderful experiences. I keep getting congratulatory messages after they've seen the film. Yeah, and of course they register the effort that John Da made. So yeah,
Well, you
that's
certainly deserve those congratulatory messages because the film is beautiful. I'm gonna do a little mental gymnastics here because I'm jumping all over the place with questions, but I do want to ask you, and I apologize because I pronunciation is not exactly my strongest suit, but Muradul Basin,
yeah.
talk to me about the process that they went through and that you went through translating these songs, these lyrics into English. I'm sure to a certain degree, like with any language, there's something lost in translation. But can you talk to me about the process that you both went through, figuring out how to convey the context or convey the message that is within this music?
Sure. Interesting how you picked on this. So, about being lost in translation, I would say the poetry of folk music is such that it's very transcendental and it's not very objective. It's very organic, and there are surreal references. When you hear the Gogaji bhajans, the angry Gogaji bhajans, they are basically meant to ward off the poison in a person's body. But they are talking about this place called Bagar, where there are no trees and there's no water. So it's a surreal depiction, definitely. Okay, coming back to Mridul Bhasin's work, I'll confess that I was not really very much involved in the translation process because she's an expert in all the translations, and she was much more aware of what these people and their folklores depicted. So she was given this sort of task of translating all the difficult lyrics, and she sort of handed over to me, and I have stuck to them, respecting her sort of authority in the sector. So yeah, but definitely she was a great help because in Rajasthan we have a lot of these experts who are still continuing to study the art forms and their various cultural references, and Mridul Bhasin is one of them.
What a heroic feat, because as you said, a different mile, a different language, to be able
Absolutely.
to interpret all of these different dialects, that's incredible to, I mean, to get a chance to try to feel it, because you can read
Wonderful.
it on a page, but to feel it as the music is playing and the artistry is being demonstrated for you, it was quite an incredible experience. I, I I really, I can't tell you enough. I really enjoyed the film because it was something so. I just, with all of my education and all of my worldliness, for better or for worse, my exposure to this culture is exceptionally limited. And so I really appreciated the film on that level. Um, I don't know. It's interesting to where it has the potential to go in the future for this global. I mean, as the world becomes more and more globalized, we are exposed to more and more cultures, and especially here in the United States, at least, as we expose ourselves to more and more different cultures, we're finding that our very limited purview is in fact exceptionally limited. So films like yours, I particularly personally very much appreciate because it gives me a broader, view of the planet that we live on. And so for that,
Absolutely.
I'm taking an aside from the discussion. I just wanted to say thank you. I very much enjoyed it. And it was something that I did not expect, because especially with modern documentaries, it is
Right.
very hand-holding, and it doesn't
Mhm.
allow you to interpret the look and the feel of I mean, it doesn't allow for much interpretation. It explains a story to you. Yours presented a culture and a story in this, slice of life that we were able to view into this nice little window. I don't have a time for how much time do we have left. Are we doing okay on time? I'm assuming we are. I'm going to say
Great.
yes. I'm saying we're doing okay. We need to wrap up. Okay. Well, I guess I want to touch on like how can people get involved? How can people learn more? How do we find out more about the foundation and about these artists?
Sure. So definitely, Jaipur Virasat Foundation has their website. You can definitely visit that. Whenever in Jaipur, do visit the Rap Museum, which will give you all the insights that you want. There is another foundation called the Jajam Foundation, which was recently founded by Vinod Joshi, who was the executive producer of the film. He was the one who sort of, took charge of the whole logistics of the film and got me on board on this travel. So now he's independently working with folk artists and sort of supporting them in this pursuit. So Jajam, Jaipur Virasat Foundation, the Jodhpur Riff. There is another Momasar Utsav, which is again you see a glimpse of it in the Shekhawati Utsav in Momasar. So these are various little initiatives by the same team who are taking these various initiatives. So whenever in Rajasthan, do make a point to visit and get in touch with these people and see what you can do, and you can write to them at the moment if there is a possibility to sort of help the folk artists from a distance. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear from you guys. And thank you. Just sort of because we are wrapping up, I'd really like to thank James and the team AFMX, because such a wonderful conversation, and I like the insightful, exchange we had here. Wonderful observations by you, James. So thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. It is such an honor to be able to connect with you over the internet, a million miles away and so close, one and the same. Truly, it was a beautiful film and a wonderful, unexpected bit of exposure to something that I didn't know enough about, to be quite honest. And I'm glad now that I do. And I can tell you, what better film to start AFMX than a film that encompasses film and music and the human experience and this beautiful sort of thing that we all share, no matter what language you speak or what culture you're from or what your experience was. Music really does touch the soul of every living person on this planet to some degree or another. And how wonderful to feature people who feel it as deeply as you possibly can. I truly thank you for making this film.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up. So thank you very much, AFMX, and thank you very much to everyone. And please check out the film if you didn't get a chance to this morning. It's a beautiful film that gives you an unbelievable view into a culture that we just don't know enough about. And if I ever get a chance to visit Rajasthan, and I hope I do, I can't wait to visit the folk festival for myself. And yeah, so for AFMX, my name is James Glover. This has been a discussion of love and artistry, and I thank you so much. Suruchi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the festival, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.